the question and comments from the audience, and then Ignacio will ask you about the audience question and comments. So you don't mind of the public chat or people asking or commenting, because we have a team that will be organizing and selecting the questions.
Oh yeah, that's up to you. Yeah, I see some. Yeah, they say hello, right? Okay, I forgot where to see the number of the participant. Yeah,
just
I finished
below.
my course.
You have to open the full screen option, and then you have on the left, you have the mute, stop video, and in the center you have on the left the participants number, the chat.
I see.
So you will see that now there are 75 people online.
Yeah, I can see it. Yeah, I can see it. Yeah. All right. Oh, just now I didn't open the full screen. All right. Hello.
Ignacio, we are on time?
We are, yeah. Whenever
Okay.
you want, Jorge, we start.
Yeah. There's still people
Try to get in.
yeah, participate in the activity. So we will be starting right now. There's some people with this video. Okay.
Maybe we wait a little bit. According to my experience, people can get into the meeting one by one. So if they are outside, it's like you know, on a pipeline.
Yeah,
So
maybe
maybe just 2 or 3 minutes late, and then we wait them for a couple of minutes. Okay?
Yeah, actually we have 15 pending requests for accessing to the activity. So yeah, it reflects that people, yeah.
Right. Yeah, and now, Professor Taotao, there is a new function also in the Zoom application in which the host, you have to manually accept and add people that are trying to get into the meeting because of privacy kind of like issues, I guess.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch. So you manage that, right?
Yeah. Jorge is managing that.
Okay. So how many, I do not know, for this meeting, how many room for people to get in? 100 or 200 or something?
We expect 150, roughly.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't know whether there is any maximum of people that can get online. Honestly, I don't know.
I guess more than 500, the application doesn't work well.
I see.
Okay. Yeah. So you have higher limitation than mine. If I open a Zoom meeting, the highest, the number could be 300, but you have 500, right?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. This is the second round, Professor Taotao. 2 weeks ago, we have a conversation with a professor from the Wharton School of Business, Pennsylvania University. He focused on the United States situation and from the economic and political perspective. So this is the second round, and in next week we will be discussing about the European Union situation with the Chilean ambassador in Italy.
Wonderful. Yeah. But would that be in English or in Spanish?
Either English, Spanish, it depends on the speaker, and most of our audience manage both languages, and we inform in advance when the activity is in English. So people know that this activity will be conducted in English.
All right. So if you do that in English, please let me know, because I really want to learn. And it was a pity that should be there last week so that I can learn the situation about US. Yeah, but
Yes.
here. So last week you did that in English?
Sorry?
I mean, last week when you had this type, you did that in
because, yeah, because the professor was born in Chile and he lived
Oh, really?
in Chile for 6-7 years.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. Okay, Ignacio?
Ready to start whenever you want.
Right.
Okay. So, good morning, everyone. Thanks for attending this second round of conversation about the global impact of coronavirus. And I'm pleased to introduce Professor Chen Taotao and our associate research from the Center for International Studies, Ignacio Tornero, who will be moderating this conversation. This is part of our activities that the Center for International Studies are organizing to reflect and to debate on the global impact from the economic, from the health, from the politic and geopolitical perspective of this pandemic. Professor Chen Taotao is a professor of the School of Economics and Management of the Tsinghua University and the director of Latin American Center of the same university. It's an honor, it's a great pleasure, Professor Taotao, to share with you your thoughts on the COVID-19, on the impact and your perspective on this, probably the most important crisis over the last century. So, Ignacio, you are the leader. You will be staying the stage, and thank you everyone for attending this activity.
Well, thank you so much, Jorge. Good morning, everyone. Good morning, Professor Taotao. Welcome you all to the second series of COVID-19 webinars organized by the Center of International Studies at Universidad Católica. Today, we'll be hosting Confronting COVID-19, What We Can Learn and Think. And we have a great speaker, Professor Chen Taotao from Tsinghua University. I also would like to point out that this activity is a special one because it's co-organized by the Center of International Studies and Tsinghua University Latin America Center. So before we start with introducing formally our guest speaker, I would like to share with you some in-house rules so we can have a better conversation between us. So first of all, please turn off your microphones. And in the end, we will leave between 15 and 20 minutes to have a Q&A discussion. So get ready and be participant to be making and raising your questions to Professor Taotao. Since this conversation will be held 100% in English, I would appreciate if you can share those questions in the chat option in the bottom of the screen by saying your name, your title, your question in English, and we will leave 15-20 minutes for that. So thanks, Dr. Taotao, for joining us today. I think many people are very eager to listen more about the experience of China from an economic international relations perspective on dealing with COVID-19. Also to point out that you are one of the leading scholars in China, Latin American research, and Tsinghua University is one of the highest ranked universities all over the world. I also would like to take the chance to congratulate the school Tsinghua University for opening their Latin American Center last year and choosing our country to do so. And we all know that the Chile-China relations are critical. China has become a critical, a strategic partner for our country. It's been our first trading partner for many years. To give you an idea, 30% of our exports have destination, China as a destination. And since 2018, also China became the first foreign trade direct investor in our country for 2 years in a row. So now I would like to formally introduce Professor Chen Taotao before we start having this conversation. Dr. Chen Taotao is a professor of the School of Economics and Management at Tsinghua University. and she is also the director of the recently incorporated Latin America Center of Tsinghua University.
No está duplicando, no encuentro.
Please turn off the microphone. Thanks. Her main research areas are foreign direct investment FDI, international business, and globalization strategy. She has published more than 30 papers on the topic of FDI spillover, Chinese companies investing abroad, and has presided research projects supported by National Science Foundation, the Ministry of Education, and the Ministry of Commerce. In recent years, Professor Chen Taotao put more efforts on the topics such as the business environment in US and Latin America, and the capability of Chinese young MNCs. During a research process, Professor Chen has visited more than 50 branches of Chinese companies who have invested in the US and Latin American countries, and collaborated with think tanks, multi-development banks such as CIFLAC, IDB, CAF, as well as top universities such as the MIT in the US, Toronto University in Canada, Catholic University in Chile. So she has been invited also to attend international forums such as the World Economic Forum, emerging market forums, making speeches and being engaged into different kinds of debates. So good morning, good night there in China, Professor Taotao. I'm very pleased to share this session with you this morning night in China.
Thank you, Ignacio. Thank you, Jorge. It's my pleasure to join you.
Great. So, Professor Taotao, we have many topics, of course, we want to discuss this morning, but let me start with the lockdown situation, the lockdown strategy followed by China, a very strict lockdown that was imposed into different cities across China since the first case of COVID-19 was reported back in November 17 last year. And one of the main strategies, which was not actually the same strategy that other Asian countries such as Japan or other European countries such as Sweden have followed, is a very strict lockdown. So can you share your comments regarding that actually strategy China has followed and about the outcomes, considering that the country is gradually normalizing the situation?
Yeah. Thank you very much. It's a wonderful question. Actually, I would like to say it is, I understand that it's a crucial moment for Chile as well as the Latin America. And it's also not an easy timing for China. And every country around this world is challenged by these forces, right? So China was the first country that the dreadful virus was burst out in my country, right? So it would be valuable to share our experience with all of our friends here. Actually, as the Ignacio told all of you, I'm not the medical doctor. I'm the professor of international business, right? So here I want to share with you my feelings and observations of the process that the Ignacio you mentioned here, okay? So a couple of things I'd like to mention. The first things I really want to share with you is the piece of feeling that struck me for all these days. Actually, how much our human being really understand, really know this dreadful unknown virus. And how as a people, we get to know this type of virus and how long it's gonna take us to really feel about this virus so that we can take action. Why I said this like that? Look at the fact. At the very beginning, when our professional, I mean, some of the researchers in China have already detected this virus, right? They send information to US, they send information to WHO, but we actually did not really feel how dreadful it is. We did not know how fast it can travel, it can spread. And we did not know how strong the detective power of that virus. So we did not take the strong action at the very, very beginning until the January 23rd. And then we really realized, our scientists like Dr. Zhong, we really realized that the serious situation that we were facing, and then we locked down the Wuhan, right? But let me just continue to tell you my feeling, okay? We have done all the things, okay? And everyone around this world was watching us. And, you know, it's not like a show. So many people died so quickly at that time. And so many medical doctors was infected at that time. We mobilized the whole country fighting against this. It's really a dreadful timing. Everyone was looking at us at that time. But see, after this, after almost 1 month, see what happened around this world. And Italy got into the similar problem. And right now, everyone can see what happened in US, right? So why people cannot realize earlier, right? You see the fact inside China, but it seems to me that it still take a long time for them to really feel that the timing that they feel it is the time that it happened to them in front of them, and it was too late to take actions, right? So what I'm trying to say is that we actually know little about this dreadful virus. And it's actually take a long time for all of us, even though we see it, but we did not feel it. Until we feel it, it's too late, right? So I really want to emphasize is that this is the kind of virus we did not know before. And we start to know it by, you know, inside China. And right now we sort of know it, but we pay too much cost, right? Okay, let's take this, if you understand what I say, if we can feel what I can say, or what I said here, and then you take that as a background, and I believe you can understand better why China took such a strict policy that locking down the whole city with 10,000, right? 100,000, sorry, 100,000 people, you know, that's a big city there, right? The policy was really, really strict. You know,
so,
I think, yeah, go on.
Yeah, I mean, it's very interesting. I mean, what you're saying in terms of like how China has been learning by experience, right? It's the first time we are fighting against COVID-19. And also China, at least, was the first country that we know was affected by the virus. So
Yeah.
this strict lockdown strategy, probably China was not thinking about implementing that at the beginning, but then they realized because of the big challenges and how dangerous the virus was and how unknown was to actually the Chinese society and the world, they decided to lock down most of the big cities in the country. And in that sense, I think it's very interesting to see what's happening at the moment, for instance, in Japan and Sweden, right? In Japan, another Asian, a very developed country, at the beginning, they didn't want to follow the Chinese strict lockdown, right? By now you see, such as what's happening in the city, in the capital of Tokyo, in which the governor, Yuriko Koike, is actually trying to part ways with the central government of Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, saying that the measures implemented by Japan at the beginning were probably not enough. So she's been suggesting that more businesses and stores, they have to be closed. So that's kind of like maybe late, we will see. Yeah. They're trying to follow more like a China, very strict lockdown strategy, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly the truth, actually. And I want to add one point there. See, for this annual virus, so far, we do not have the vaccine, right? And we do not have the effective medicine. So how to control it? The only way to control it is to find the source of the virus and cut down the channel of the spreading. This is the only way to control that. right?
Right.
That's why we have to control it very strictly. There's no other way to do it.
Right.
So for Wuhan, it's already turned into very bad situation. You can already see, we have the capital build up within 10 days, too big capital, and all kind of things there, right? Because of that, just because of that, so we really cut down the channel of spreading from Wuhan. So that give the chance to other province and cities inside the China. So you can see other cities and provinces that we did not take the similar policy as Wuhan. And also that gives the chance to all of other countries, if you can take the action earlier and you do not have to do the things like what we did in Wuhan. But unfortunately, we still have some other countries, haven't took enough the policy as early as possible.
Well, I mean, regarding that, I think in the case of Chile, we were also lucky, or we did a smart move in implementing a very strict lockdown in the very beginning, right? If you see like Chilean figures, we have at this moment 7,000 plus cases and a little bit less than 100 deaths. Probably many, I mean, the results of having a control situation, we can call it at this moment, is because of the government decided to implement also a very strict lockdown for our standards. But I would like to ask you, Professor Taotao, I mean, besides the very strict lockdown, we identify also very special features in China and other countries also in Asia as a strategy to fight against the virus, such as, for example, like the central role of the Chinese government. It has also impressed us like the Chinese and Asian people's behavior and special culture when they were willing to stay at home. They were using masks almost everywhere. They were complying with the authority instructions. And finally, the widespread use of technology. I mean, we know that many countries in Asia, such as China, such as Japan, South Korea, they're very sophisticated in terms of like the use of technology. And I think that has been a very also critical point to fight against the virus. So if you can share with us some input, your input regarding the special role of the government, specifically in China, and try to make a comparison on what you see, for example, with what we have in Chile or other Latin American countries, would be great.
Let me have a try. Actually, let me separate what you mentioned into two issues, right? The one issue is how strict your policy is, okay? Quite frankly, because we're very much familiar with each other, right? Because at the very beginning, you said that Chile have already taken very strict policy, which I know, and I'm very happy about it. And after 1 minute, you said that, compared with China people are more sort of disciplined. Asian people are more disciplined, wear masks and all these type of things. Meaning that, I do not know whether I'm right, okay? Meaning that even right now in Chile, people are not used to wear masks. Is that what you said? If that is the case, that really make me worry, okay? So the thing is, let me come back to the point I have already made. The only way to cut down, the only way to control the virus is to cut down the channel of the spreading, okay? We are educated, we have been educated so much time, almost every day on the TV. Because when people cough, right? And then the virus, the potential virus, could reach others. And if you wear the mask, that's the way that you protect other people if you have the virus. And also, that's also protect yourself for if other people around cough, right? The virus is gonna reach you. So wearing masks is the basic tool to cut down the channel of the spreading. You understand what I said? So it's not is not about the culture. It is about the necessity, okay? So if you people can be educated in that way, if they realize the logic of this spreading of the virus, they gonna wear masks. It's not anything about the culture, okay? It's you need to educate enough for your people. This is the necessary things to wear masks. You understand what I say, okay?
Yeah, I mean, thank you, Professor Taotao. I definitely agree with you in the sense that this is a necessity. I mean, wearing masks. However, I also wanted to point out that there is a different cultural approach regarding that. I mean, if people have been to, for instance, China, and you will see that even before COVID-19, people were wearing masks as a regular basis because probably they had a flu, or the earth quality was not the best. And culturally speaking, that was okay. Even in some other Asian countries, there is a way of showing other people's respect. You are wearing a mask. And we see, it's very interesting to see it in other Western countries such as Europe or North America, that even at the beginning, some prime ministers or presidents, they were saying that they don't see themselves wearing a mask in the near future. However, they have realized that they may change, that actually that kind of like behavior, are realizing that it's first a necessity, and they may also think about like changing the local culture, because wearing a mask is something good, right?
Yeah, Ignacio. Yeah, I do understand you say culture issue. I'm professor of international business. I'm highly sensitive to the culture issue. And I understand what you said just now. But I have to emphasize is that it is not the timing to change the culture. It is exactly the special timing to wear masks as necessity. After this, okay, after 2 or 3 months, let's say the virus has already gone, and nobody needs to wear that mask. Even though you get a flu, you do not need to have that mask. But now, exactly now, everyone needs that. I think that you got what I say, right?
Yeah, definitely. I got your point, Professor Taotao. And now let me kind of like address a different specific and special feature of China and other Asian countries, as I mentioned before, which is technology, right?
Yeah.
If you've been to China, Beijing, big cities, Shanghai, all over China, you will very soon realize that the use of technology is very widespread in the whole country. I'm saying, for instance, banking and finance, you have so many apps like Alipay, and Financial, WeChat Pay. You have different apps for food delivery, Elema, Hema, Meituan, and so on. You have the use of I used to live there for a few years. So you have entertainment options. You can pay utilities using different digital apps. You can hire insurance policies, shop online, and so on. And if you compare that situation with, let's say, Latin America or Chile, you will see that the gap is huge. I will give you one example. So when the government in Chile at the beginning, they wanted to have a strict lockdown, and they were trying to avoid people going into the streets. And at first, the people kind of like, okay, I'm gonna stay inside. However, there was one case in which people, they had to go outside to renovate their vehicles permits. And the people were gathering because they didn't have the chances, for example, to use an app and renovate your vehicle permit. So that's kind of ironic, right? The government is trying to go into one direction, and because maybe we as a country or region, we don't have the technological needs to implement that in 100% way, you still see people that they have to go to the street. And I would like to quote, I was reading a very interesting article by Harvard Business School, and they said COVID-19 is a wake-up call for European and the US, which both need to accelerate the digital transformation of their economies ahead of the next pandemic. So what can you share in that regard with us, since you know very well our technological stage in Chile and the region?
Yeah, I do can share some of my ideas here. Actually, we are lucky, I feel. Okay, we are lucky to develop digital economy as what we are right now. Is actually help a lot for us for this process of fighting with the virus. Let me just mention two pieces here. Okay, one is that, as I mentioned just now, constantly. There's only one way to control the virus is to actually find the source of the virus. You need to find the people who carry that virus. And then you chase for the people who nearby, you find different ways. I don't need to mention one by one, okay, just find different ways to cut off the channel. Okay, so see, when I was at home, at the most dreadful timing, and I can open my cell phone, I can see the map on my cell phone, so I know where is the place that have been heavily infected. Okay, so if I need to go to the supermarket to buy things, I just cannot, go around and just far away from the place that have been heavily infected. Okay, so you can see very clearly where is those type of place. That's very, very much important for everyone. Okay, but at the same time, even though I can see the place that is heavily infected, but I do not know who exactly there. There's no name, no personal information there. It's just colored like that. Okay, so I think that kind of map is very critical for the timing that for Chile. Of course, right now is in China, we're relatively better right now. Okay, and this actually happened to Korea, and Germany is doing that. See, those are the technique. Those are the advantages that we can take from the digital tool. Okay, I understand just now you didn't mention, but I believe you're gonna mention, is that the data privacy issue, right? You see, I had this type of aware that kind of discussion in Chile as well as in Latin America, a long time ago. Okay, so the argument is whether you take advantages of the digital economy, whether or you just give it up and then you keep the data privacy. I think the thing is not that simple. Okay, I believe the people have enough intelligence to find a way to provide the privacy while take the advantages of the digital economy. Okay, like what I mentioned just now. My case I've already showed to you. In Korea, they did the similar thing. And then they used numbers. Nobody know who exactly behind those numbers. They used the number replacing the name and the detail, the data, the personal data, right? So what I'm trying to say is that we are clear enough, we are smart enough to find a way to take the advantages of the digital tools as well as protecting our data privacy, right? So, but if we put the link between what is happening right now, it is necessity, it is the social society, everyone needs those data to protect themselves, right?
And then Professor, sorry.
Yeah, I'm already.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Great. Well, actually, I mean, when you started addressing this privacy, I mean, technology-based versus privacy issue, that was gonna be my next question. So.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No worries about that. It's great, but I mean, if you see, for example, and you were just mentioning that, I mean, if you see the situation in China, in South Korea, they're both Asian countries, but they have very different contexts from many perspectives, from political perspective, in terms of geographical size, in terms of like population size. And you see that their approach, both Chinese and South Koreans' approach towards technology is the same in terms that you see that people's willingness to use on the one hand and on the other to, let's say, be their private data, be gathered either in a private, whatever company, or in a governmental agencies, databases, are much bigger than the willingness that we have, for example, in Latin America, in Chile, or in different and many Western countries. So why do you think that willingness is, let's say, higher, call it higher, in Asia, in China, in South Korea, and Japan, than the one we have in our region? Because you've been adopting technology before us, or because of other reasons?
I think if you compare with China and Korea, compare with Chile regarding the digital economy, it might be difficult because let me just put it very frankly, okay? Regarding the development level of the digital economy, Chile and Latin America is far behind China and Korea, okay? Well, you really developed the digital economy to some extent. People can get so much benefit from this type of economy, okay? You know, there's a choice between the people, whether you like to accept it or not. If you have enough more benefit than the cost, and people can make more judgment. You understand what I say, right? So for example, right now, we really, why the government can control the virus so efficiently? Because it really depends on this digital tool. They really know how to trace those source of the virus. That's the key, okay? That's one thing. And the other thing is that actually we realized, me myself also realized after this process, okay? We realized we really can take a lot of advantages of the digital economy. See, 2 weeks before the opening of the university, we all of a sudden get the information from the president, the Dr. Chiu Yong, the president of my university. They ask all the faculties and all the students of Tsinghua University. At that time, we are everywhere around China, everywhere around the world, okay? We were required to get on, the Tsinghua developed the app, we call it Raining Classroom. We get into there, okay? So all of us, and then we listen to our president. The president said that we need to continue our teaching, but nobody can come back to the university. So let's do it online. And 2 weeks after, more than 3,000 courses, all of a sudden, all online. So right now, regarding the university, the teaching task, and we are going on as exactly according to the normal calendar. But none of the students come back to school, none of the faculty come back to school. So we take a lot of advantages of this digital issue. And of course, as what you said, right? People keep on buy things from online so that we can keep the basic life right now. So if you have those type of advantages, especially for the time being right now, and people can make more judgment whether they want this or that, right? And again, as I mentioned just now, sometimes you do not have to really choose from black or white, right? You need to find a way to gain the advantage of all of that, protecting your database, as well as taking advantages of digital tools. We are smart enough to do that, I do believe.
That's very impressive, Dr. Taotao, and I think there is a huge room for learning and improvement in Latin America and Chile in terms of developing further our technologies. So yeah. Let's change a little bit the topic and let's discuss about going back to normal. I mean, lockdown in Wuhan city was lifted last week. And the situation in China, we've seen that is gradually normalizing. Cities such as Shanghai, Beijing, they're opening up. However, I would like to mention one article published by Forbes magazine based on some information of Baidu. It was almost published like a month ago, in which they said that 90% of restaurants were already open in Beijing, 87 in Shanghai, and 84 in Guangzhou, right? So we see that on the one hand, the Chinese economy may be going back to normal gradually and opening up again. However, the risk and the challenge is that consumption and economic activity may be still weak at this point. So I would like to hear from you, what have you seen in Beijing, where you are based, and what have you seen is happening in other cities, first tier and second and third tier cities in China, in terms of like going back to normal and restoring people's consumption and demand, economy demand?
Actually, quite frankly, right now, the situation inside China, we're far from normalization. Far from, okay? So you can see the 90% of the restaurant open, meaning that beforehand, they totally shut down, okay? It's totally shut down. Right now, we encourage them to open their business. That's the 90% mean, okay? It means the 90% of the restaurant, they start to open. Rather than, doesn't mean that the 90% of the business coming back. You know the difference, right? Yeah. It's different. Yeah. So take the restaurant as an example. There's very seldom people really getting into restaurant to have their, gathering there to have the meal. No, the gathering is not encouraged. Okay, but we can order more things online. So the restaurant people coming back, they can make more food inside and deliver online to different families. Okay, even the most famous, I believe, Ignacio, you really know Peking Duck, right?
Yeah.
The Peking Duck restaurant.
One of my favorites.
They never deliver the fast food. Right now, that restaurant nearby my Tsinghua University, they start to deliver fast food. Okay, so the recovery, meaning that we encourage most of the restaurant as well as the small medium business to get back to business, but it's not like normal. Let's say maybe half of the people or 2/3 of the people, they come back to the place, okay? And we, at the same time, we encourage the people who can work online, they still at home working online, okay? That's very important to do that, because so far we still haven't get rid of the danger of the virus. We still have imported cases, and we still find some small numbers even, but some local cases still exist. So we do not want to sacrifice, we have cost so much for the previous 2 months, and we want to keep this, okay? So we still pay a lot of attention to continuously control the virus. So you can see that we, on one hand, we want to recover the economy. On the other hand, we still need to control the virus. So we have to keep the balance like that.
Yeah.
So
well, that actually, Professor Taotao, I mean,
yeah.
What would you just describe? I mean, on the one hand, you have to control the virus,
yeah.
and try to kind of like restart the economy. It's
yeah.
basically, I mean, what we are facing at this moment in Chile. Yesterday we started lifting the strict lockdown in a few districts in the country, because the government, they realized we cannot keep the economy closed for the whole year and for years until a vaccine is developed. So my question is, what would you say is the perfect or best timing for start lifting the lockdown? I mean, how to balance this health control and on the other, the economy restart?
Yeah, let me tell the Chinese experience, because the country are different, okay? The condition is different. My feeling for this type of timing, according to Chinese experience, is like, first of all, during the very crucial timing of controlling the virus. There's no way to keep the balance. Okay, we have to totally shut down the economy because we need to cut down the channel of the spreading. That's what we did for, just like more than months, almost like 2 months. Okay, and then we get the very good result, and actually all the province, they actually gain the timing coming without additional cases. Okay, so we many province without new cases for a couple of days at least, right? And then they start to get the business back. You understand what I say? Okay, so the sort of logic is, to me, is like during the crucial timing of controlling the virus, there's no way to keep the balance. You just totally shut down. Okay, but as a result, if you can take this situation under control as quick as possible, and the sooner that you can get your economic back. Okay, so it's very dangerous to open this lockdown policy while you haven't really take the virus under control. That's my point.
I see. And what about, like, if you want to start the restart the economy after, let's say, a few months that has been closed? Of course, like even big enterprises or SMEs, they cannot probably do it by themselves. So they probably need the support of the government in that respect. And we've seen that in Chile, for instance, we have the Chilean government has announced already a stimulus package of a total of 16.7 billion US dollars, which is a 6.7% of our GDP, which is a big stimulus package for our standards. And the government itself, they have shown some signals and willingness to maybe do further things depending on how the situation evolves in the future. And this stimulus package is mainly trying to achieve 3 things. The first one is to safeguard employment and liquidity to enterprises, protect the income of households, and finally to increase the health budget. So what can you say in terms of, like, what has Chinese government doing so far? We know that a stimulus package was launched of $160 billion, which is still much smaller than the one that China launched back in 2008 and 2009 of the financial crisis. So what is China probably gonna do in that regard? Can we expect to see a bigger stimulus package from China in the coming, let's say, weeks or months? I saw an article that that person mentioned that maybe China is thinking about putting a few trillions of US dollars into the economy for an infrastructure investment package. Can you share some information regarding that?
I think we are doing it in process. Okay. I did not have exactly number in my mind, but I think the process is important. The first step, after we have 0 additional cases, I think that is the timing for trying to get the economy back, rather than during the process. Okay, I've already made that very clear. So after we did not have the new cases, and then the government tried to get the economy back, they have a lot of a plan. Okay, the plan is not only from the federal level, it's actually go deep into every province, because every province, every city, they have a different type of situation. So the package of the money is not the only thing that the government can do, right? They choose the different thing to do. Let's say we are continue to control the virus, so the type of business that associated with the stuff that associate with the prevention. Let's say the company that produce masks, the company that produce the printing machines, those type of business are highly encouraged and fully helped to get recovery, right? And also for the logistic type of company, just because everyone depend on them and purchasing things online, and they get a lot of help, you know. So you can take that as an example. The different government can catalog different business to see the necessity and to help them in a specific way that they need. Okay, that's the most effort that we're doing here. Of course, during that time, they need to get enough money to support, and that money come from, let's say, less taxi, less expenditure, less the electricity fee and water fees, all these type of things. And then they can delay the pay back to the loan or the interest, and they have give the subsidy for different reasons. You know, I cannot name one by one, but the thing is that the government on different level, they put a lot of money and for specific need to the companies, and that's for the first step, is to just try to get them, keep them alive, and get them back to the business. Of course, maybe in the near future, not right now, because right now is not the timing. Okay, we still need some time to really control the virus, but maybe in the near future. But we have already seen that plan. Okay, there are big plans for the infrastructure for the physical infrastructure, as well as the new infrastructure. For example, 5G plans, you know, the internet associated type of infrastructure. We do have those type of big plan for stimulating the economy going. Yeah.
And what about, Professor Taotao, what about employment?
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen, for example, like what's been happening in the States in terms of like unemployment benefits requests that are over already 16 million claims of unemployment benefits. So what have you seen in China in terms of like employment, and what do you expect that the government is going to be making or implementing to keep employment high?
That's a little bit difficult. I cannot give you a very fantastic answer, because regarding the employment, you see, China is the open economy. We depend on the local demand as well as the overseas market. Right now, the overseas market is really getting down because of the virus, right? So that will be difficult to create a lot of employment. So the general way is like, you know, compare with before we shut down, and right now we invite them coming back, and then we try to stimulate the consumption inside the country, so that we can have economic growth, and then we can have more employment. Of course, at that time, just because we want the business to employ more people, for example, want to encourage them to accept the graduate from the university, and the government provides subsidy to the business and encourage them to hire more new graduates. We do have that kind of plan, but it's far from, you know, it's not quite satisfactory because of the economy itself. We will still try to think about other ways to do it.
Thank you, Professor Taotao. And let's talk a bit about the recovery of the Chinese economy and the world economy in general. I mean, I think people, governments, we are looking forward to see the recovery of the world economy as soon as possible. And scholars and economists, they've been saying different things, such as like the recovery may have a U or V shape, depending on different circumstances in different countries. So what is your expectation regarding that? I mean, do you expect that the Chinese economy is going to be recovering soon? It depends on the industries. It depends on the global economy as well. Can you share some insights regarding that?
As I said just now, you see the let me just try to put the complicated things simple. If we are still looking for the global economy as we were back to 2008, before 2008, it will be much more optimistic, because we have, inside China we have all kinds of industry, and we have a lot of supply chain inside the China, and we do have a big local market, we do have a big global market. So we just after this battle against the virus and everything, we believe really coming back. That is the sort of assume like that. But the complicated thing is like, I believe it's like depend on what is happening right now. Now we are facing, every country facing this battle against the virus. If everyone realize the people have really limited intelligence, and people realize this virus is the enemy for the whole mankind, and people really realize we need each other, we need to get together against this, and we do it, we are doing it, we will doing it, and in the end, everyone getting together and win the battle. And then the whole world, China as well as Chile, as well as any other countries around this world, we will win each other, we will win a better future together. But if during this process, country is not working like that, country working for themselves and fighting to each other rather than align to each other, I do not know, I might not, I don't want to foresee that kind of future. Will be not that positive.
Well, if probably it's impossible to anticipate and forecast any specific figures. Let's say China and the world would be having a growth rate of whatever, but are you more optimistic or pessimistic considering the achievements of China and Asia so far, and the agreements and cooperation between countries in the world, and the control of the virus, and how we've seen that many countries have reached some plateaus, kind of like trends? Are you more optimistic or pessimistic in terms of like the economic future?
I actually cannot make that a clear prediction. Yeah. If it's only for the virus, you can see it, the country were in trouble, and every country, let's see in Europe, right? Even the country like Germany, they at the very beginning still, sort of get the stuff from other country, right? They could say they are for their own people. I understand why that happened. But if it's only for this virus, only for this battle, that won't hurt the future supply chain. Even though we heard from the top lady in Germany, she's sort of saying that we need our own capacity for making a masks. We understand the reason, right? But after this virus, after this battle, whether the country all need to produce things for themselves, I don't believe that. After more than 10 years, from the couple of decades, after a couple of decades globalization process, every country get benefit from it. I believe most of the countries still prefer to cooperate to each other, I believe. So regarding that, I'm pessimistic, right? I feel we still can do that as what we did before. But something complicated that I do not want to really extend, it's like sort of the trade war between China and US. That's not happened to every country. Okay, that's make some changes for the country like China. Okay, the Huawei, just a short example. Huawei is a great company, as I know. I like it because they try to nurse the suppliers that can work with them. They are the core. They help the suppliers to develop inside China as well as around this world. But if US did the things to Huawei like that, and then that forced this powerful company to make everything by themselves, I don't like that trend, but they have to do. Okay, so I think maybe that's I hope that is a unique type of cases. Okay, without that unique one, we still hope everyone still can work together to have the win-win in the future. Okay.
Great, Professor Taotao. And just one more question before we start the Q&A session. Let's talk a little bit about China's global role during and after COVID-19 crisis. We've seen that in the last few years, China has been more engaged in the world from different aspects. So what do you expect China to do during the crisis and after that? Many countries, I mean, and many institutions, they've been saying that China may have a bigger role in terms of rebuilding a new world economic and institutional order after COVID-19. What do you see in that regard?
See, China, let me put it in two ways, right? One is that what China can behave ourselves, what we're gonna do. That's one thing. The other thing is how the world see the role that China can play is another, all right? For China ourselves, I think we're gonna behave the same way as what we did before, because we fully believe that this world is a community with shared future of mankind. That's really what we believe. And during this crisis, and that's exactly the truth that show in front of everyone. So we believe that, and then we push forward the globalization, and we're going to do that exactly the same, okay? So that's what we want to do. We're gonna insist doing that in the near future. But how China was viewed, the role of the globe, of the world, I think again that's depend on how each country expect the future of the world. I still believe if more countries still want to, to be together, want to go to the, share the value that the China present to this world, like Belt and Road Initiative, right? So if we have more countries that share the same value with us, now China have become a big country, we have our responsibility to be with everyone, okay? So we try to win the win-win situation with all the country with the same value with us. We are responsible country, okay? So that's the my answer to your questions, okay?
Thank you so much, Professor Taotao, and I think our participants, they are looking forward to start making their own questions directly to you.
Yeah,
and we have
please.
first one coming from Alfredo Lave, who is a diplomat and ambassador of Chile. So Alfredo, if you can turn on your microphone and ask your question directly to Professor Taotao. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Ignacio. Congratulations for your moderation, and congratulations for the Center for inviting Dr. Chen to share her views with us. It has been really very interesting. As you mentioned, or you implied in your presentation, the current crisis, pandemic crisis, has had as a background the power or the great power competition going on between the United States and China. But the pandemic has demonstrated the fragility of national states and the need for cooperation. You mentioned this also. So in a way, the crisis has been opening opportunities. And there was some example for this, which I like to put before you. And it is the initiative taken by Japan very early in the crisis to send some medical supplies urgently needed by China at that moment. I believe that was in January. And the parcels were delivered with a poem very familiar to Chinese people. I don't recall it exactly, but the idea was the following. The lands might be distant, but the skies are the same. And this created a positive momentum in the relations between Japan and China, which was very positive for the global security situation in the Indo-Pacific and for the world order too. They even coined a word for this, and the word is mask diplomacy. So in multilateral diplomacy, leadership is always by nature, by definition, if you want, more diffuse, is collective, more collective. So the opportunities created, for instance, by the decision taken by certain countries that I'm not going to mention to reduce contributions to the WHO in Geneva at a moment when WHO badly needs more resources, will create possibilities for China to assume a positive leadership. The mask diplomacy, of course, would have many chapters. What can you tell us about that? Thank you very much.
Actually, for some detailed things, I might not know, okay? But what you mentioned is, you know, you mentioned a lot of beautiful things, especially one of them is like when China was in trouble, and Japan actually sent their support to us with some beautiful words there. That's really, really touching. That kind of movement really, you know, give us not only the impression we feel the wholeheartedly we are the close friend and neighborhood. We want to do things more in a future. That's really give us that kind of the impression and power. That's really, I agree with you on that. For the other things, for the WTO, you see, the WTO actually admire the director in general of the world of WHO, the Dr. I do not know how to call that in English, but you know who I talk about. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, they actually visit China at the January 20th, and they work with Chinese team and all the time and send information all the time, make a lot of judgments, make a brilliant leadership for WHO for the whole world fighting against the virus. I think they actually worth the respectation, and they need more funding to support. I understand that. I believe, because I'm not the decision making, I watch all the time. The China have already worked with WTO very closely. I believe we're gonna put our effort to fully support this the international organization. But for the precise, the number of the capital that we can the contribute, I do not know. I'm sorry for that. Is that fine with you?
Absolutely, absolutely, Doctor. Thank you very much for your answer.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, Alfredo and Professor Taotao. Now we have a second question, so I would like to give the microphone to Fernando Reyes Mata. Fernando Reyes Mata is a former ambassador of Chile to China. Fernando, please, whenever you're ready.
Ignacio, would you help him to open the mic?
It's already open, I guess.
Yeah, great, thank you.
Hello,
Fernando.
Ignacio. Hola,
Fernando.
my dear Taotao. Wonderful to
Yeah.
see you. Well, my question, because Alfredo touched before the relation U.S. and China, so I want to put another issue. G20. During the crisis 2008, G20 had a very important role. Just recently, 1 week ago or 2 weeks ago, have the virtual conference like this of the G20. What is your opinion about the role of the G20 now in this new crisis? Do you think it's the real forum to touch the challenger, or maybe we need to another moment, another institutional moment, another Bretton Woods, maybe another Bretton Woods to organize and to touch the situation? So my question is related with the role of G20, because I believe this is not only the role of the, some say G2, we need G20, no G2, to organize the rest of their life during the 21st century. That's my point. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Fernando. Actually, the G20 is an existing mechanism for this is an international platform with more countries inside. I believe the G20 is still wonderful and also the functional type of mechanism for discussing international issues. I think the complicated with, you know, the current days with the complicated situation, the different countries have different type of opinion. And it's even though it's very much difficult to get agreement with so many countries, but with this type of platform, it's better to collect the wisdom from every country, right? I think the final solution only can come out from understanding as much as possible, you know, the more countries, rather than just a small group of countries getting together. They find a way that benefit only themselves, right? So even though G20 is a little bit difficult, more countries have different voice, but I still feel it is a good mechanism, and we just need to try to find some way to make it more efficient, but no need for other mechanism to replace it. That's my opinion. Okay,
Thank you so much, Fernando. Professor Taotao, now I will be on behalf of one of my colleagues, actually from Center of International Studies, Catholic University, Daniela San Martin. She's an affiliate researcher at the center. She would like to ask you how China will rebuild its crucial role in the global supply chain after the pandemic crisis, and how that can affect the Latin American countries in the meantime.
It's a relatively complicated. I don't know how to put these complicated things more simple. One is that, as I said, China, we still believe the more countries are still try to be with the global economy, meaning that we still want the supply chain that can be distributed into different countries with different advantages, so that everyone can get benefit from it. And that's the basic rule for the global economy. If more countries still with it, we would like to open it. Yeah, we still want to do that, right? But of course, I have to say, if we have to depend on ourselves. We have to depend on ourselves for some more things like core technology. China right now, we do have the capability to make it. So we will see how the world, or specifically how the different countries want to work with us. Our intention remain the same, to collaborate with everyone. But if we are forced to make the things ourselves, we do have capability. That's at least my personal attitude towards your question. Okay, and regarding the friends, Latin America, this is the two things, right? One is that we have complementary factors to each other. That's why we have tremendous trade room, the room for develop the trade, right? That's one thing. That's the China. We try to open up our own market. For the Latin American countries, you have tremendous, wonderful things you want to export to China. We like it. We welcome it. Okay, so that's one thing. The other thing is that I understand during all these years, Latin America followed the Washington Consensus, and you feel that it's difficult to continue because you want more value chain getting into your own country. Okay, Chile start to do a good job, right? We understand Chile really understand the rule of the game, and you try to build more supply chain inside your country. We are very much supportive. If those type of effort, according to the economic rule, if it is feasible, we try to be supportive. You can see that we have more companies that already inside Chile, and if we see the opportunity and can get a win-win situation with Chilean company, we're gonna do it. And Tsinghua University, our center, is also there to facilitate that. Okay. So in the future, we're going to apply more effort there. Yeah.
Thank you, Professor Taotao. We have another yes?
Ignacio, I just mentioned one thing. I can see the question coming into the chatting room, but I did not have enough time to read them. So if you have the time or you have colleagues there, I encourage you to mention those questions to me so that I can also take care of them. Okay?
Sure. We've been actually gathering and collecting those questions. So I'm just like making those questions directly to you on behalf of the participants.
Thank you.
So here comes the question number 4, made by Maria Flores. She's a scholar at Tech of Monterrey, and she would like to ask you, Professor Taotao, how did the contact tracking applications emerge in the different communities when they are being used? Are they individual startups? Did several apps arise in parallel and build a critical mass independently, or are they generally government-funded initiatives?
Just one moment, I didn't really catch what you said. Just try that again.
I mean, all these the tracking apps that China they've been using so far to detect people with the virus. So basically, the question is: are these individual startups, or you see that also the government is backing up and funding these initiatives?
I think the systematically getting those data, I think it's the government's the doing. Yeah. Technically, I do not know the detail, but the government really need those data to protect the society, right? So I believe they will have the arrangement to collect this data, maybe through the private sectors, the platform, I do not know, right? But for this specific reason to trace those, the people who carry the virus, I believe this is government doing, at least with the leadership of government.
Great, Professor. I think this is going to be the last question. So I invite Francisco Urdines, who is a professor of political science at Catholic University. So please, Francisco, whenever you're ready, you can ask Professor Taotao the question directly.
Thank you very much. Thank you for all the answers. I would like to ask, well, there's been a huge discussion on how well and how bad at the same time China has dealt this crisis domestically and internationally. It's certainly one of the main key moments in Xi Jinping's current government, I would say. One of those historical moments that are a turning point sometimes for leaders. So I would like to ask you if by the end of the pandemic, do you think that the government's leadership will end up being strengthened or will end up being weakened by the crisis?
Yeah, my answer is absolutely be strengthened. You can see that, you know, through the whole process, every Chinese people, we feel that the government care about us. The government really care about every life in this country. All right. I might, you know, this comparison might not the very appropriate, you know, with the cultural differences. You can see the different countries' government have different attitude, different policies towards their own citizen. To me, you know, as a professor of international business, I really know the differences between the countries, among the countries. So I mean, personally, I respect any country. They can take any kind of policy in their own country. We cannot really sort of make the comparison, okay? That's not the issue. The thing is that as the Chinese people see what happened around this world and see what had happened inside this country, we admire our government, what our government did to our people. We feel we're protected, we feel we're respected, and with all the effort, with the leadership of the government, and we can put the things under control within like 2 months. And after this, we can see this country, I mean, my own country, try to support all the friendly country. And we donate things to our friends and everyone inside this country. If we have the connection around this world, we try to contribute and support it. See, with all these things in our mind, we feel we're very much proud of this country with the leadership of presidency. That's how I feel.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Francisco. So, Professor Taotao, I think it's we are in time to wrap up. So, first of all, I would like to thank you on behalf of the Center of International Studies at Catholic University, your personal participation in this second series of seminar about COVID-19. Thank also Tsinghua University Latin America Center and Tsinghua University in Beijing. I think it's been a great time discussing with you your expertise and your insights on what's been happening in China and trying to make a connection and give us some tips to us in Chile on how to deal better with this huge crisis we are facing at this time. I would also like to thank all the participants. They were very active, and all the people that joined today. So thank you so much. It's already late there in China, but I think it was a great conversation that we had this night in Beijing. So thank you so much.
Exactly. Let me just very briefly to say a few words, okay?
Of course.
First of all, thank you very much for having me here. It's a great opportunity for me to learn from all of you and to understand how you think about China. I want this type of conversation to be continued. The second and third things I really want to mention that right now, the policy in Chile as well as in Latin America, in many countries, you took the early action like what you are, and please continue. And I believe, you know, in China, we only have the Wuhan lockdown like that, and all the other provinces, we take the policy like content as what you did, and we make our success. And you should be confident in your own policy and do it strictly, follow all the rules and go to the detail, like washing hands, these type of things. You can make, I do have the confidence in that. The last thing is that do embrace the digital economy. If it's beforehand, there's no chance for you really think about that, it is the time to embrace the digital economy. It's time to change that culture, and that will help you to fight against the virus right now. I'm gonna help you to get recovery soon after this virus, and gonna give you the more bright future. I really encourage about that. Latin American Center of Tsinghua University are gonna be very much supportive to your the movement in this direction. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Professor Taotao. We'll definitely fight against COVID-19 together. Thank you so much. Have a good night there in China.
Thank you. I enjoyed it. Thank you for having me here.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Ignacio and Professor Taotao for that brilliant presentation. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thanks, Fernando.